So next we are going to look at the third block, mechatronic block system, so which is the control system block diagram. So this shows an open loop system block diagram. So in this control system block diagram, we have the actuation system. So the input to the actuation system is the input signal that actually move the system. So it can be voltage, current, pressure, or fluid. So this is depending on what type of actuator that you're using. So if it's an electrical actuator, so the input will be either voltage or current, or if it's a mechanical actuator, so it can be voltage, or if it's a pneumatic actuator, then it will be a compressed pressure, or if it's a hydraulic actuator, the input will be compressed fluid. Okay, so the output of the actuation system is the movement. Okay, the rotary actuator or linear actuation. So it can be in linear motion or rotary motion. So this shows an example of a basic open loop system. So which consists of actuation system, and if it's so when we talk about a control system, means that it's actually a closed loop system. So there will be 4 basic functional blocks for the control system. So it will be, the first one will be the process to be controlled. Example of process to be controlled, it can either be you want to control the speed, you want to control the angular motion, or you want to control the displacement. Second one will be the actuator inside the block. The third one will be the sensor, which is the sensor to read the actuation. So if it's a linear motion, then you want to have to actually embed a linear sensor. And the fourth one will be the controller to actually control the whole system. So for the control system block diagram, it consists of the 2 initial blocks that I explained in the previous slide, which is it comprises of the measurement system and also the actuation system. And of course, because it's a control system block, so you need to have the controller inside here. So this shows the complete control system block diagram, where initially you have the actuated system and you have the output and input into the system, but because you want to control the system, then you need to apply a controller before the system. And for the actuator system, in order for you to measure the motion or the displacement or the temperature, so you need to add the sensor, which is the reading that to the actuator system. So therefore this measurement system will actually be will directly be connected to the actuator system here. And this measurement system, where you collect the digital data from analog to digital here, is going to be the feedback to the reference as the input to be controlled. Okay, so this shows the complete block diagram. So let's look back again to the previous system. So if you do not have the controller here and you do not have the measurement system here, it only shows the open loop system, which is the basic open loop system comprised of actuator system. So this slide shows the comparison of all the 3 block diagrams. So you have the measurement system here, you have the actuator system, and you have the control system. So just imagine that you have the whole measurement system here, this measurement system inside this part, and you have the actuation system here inside this block diagram. So the control system will comprise of these 2 main systems. So let's look at example of measurement system. So we have here an example of a human temperature measurement system, and you can see that actually our epidermis, our skin, is actually the sensor that actually give the signal to our brain to actually move our hand. So this represents an example of a measurement system, where our skin is the sensor or the measurement system. So here is that a cup of coffee, how do you know the temperature is just right to drink? So human skin can sense the temperature. Okay, so is a human body a closed loop system? So what do you think? Is it a closed loop or an open loop? So another example is our human body temperature control system, which is our body, the whole of body. So why human sweat and why shiver? So I think you can just go through this flow chart and see that hemostasis and temperature control. So here is that when our body detect that is if the temperature drop or temperature rises, so what actually effect is that our body will try to regulate our normal body temperature to 37 degree. So here is that our the human body itself is a control system, a complete control system. Okay, so is this a closed loop system? So yeah, as I mentioned, it's a closed loop system. Okay, we have the actuator system, which is our if it's cold, what happens is that we try to actually add on layers to layers of clothes so that we actually keep our heat. And then measurement system is our skin itself, so we detect that it's cool, so we wear additional clothes, or if it's too hot, then we actually wear thinner clothes. Okay, and then control is that our brain itself will actually detect if it's temperature or regulate. Our body itself will try to regulate to the normal temperature. So if you see here is that we have the mechatronic control system and its component, and you have three blocks here. We have block number 1, okay, block number 2, and block number 3. So in block number 1 is that we have the control architecture. So basically nowadays people are using all of this PLC control algorithm in, for example, in subject control engineering, you're going to learn about PID controller or the compensated controller, and sometimes you are going to add on the complication. Example is that now you are using the Arduino or Raspberry Pi, so here will be the control architecture component. Okay, and in the second column is that you're going to have the actuation. So you have the actuation. Okay, actuation system here. So you have types of actuator. You have the hydraulic, you have pneumatic, you have the electrical, or you have the and then in combination with the actuation system, that's normally you will have the signal conditioning. So reason why is that you need to convert from the control architecture, the output here is in digital, so you're going to convert it to from digital to analog. So it means that here the input will be digital and the output here will be analog. So therefore you're going to convert it from digital to analog so that your actuator can read the signal in analog. Okay, and after that is that this signal in analog is that it's either in output, so depending on what type of actuator that you're using, so it's either can be a linear actuator or rotary actuator. So linear actuator and rotary actuator here is that you're going to give it example in terms of motion, linear motion or linear displacement, or you can see that in rotary displacement. And other than that, maybe the output can be a temperature or output can be a speed. So it depends on what type of actuator that you have here. Okay, so and this output, if you have only this block here, okay, meaning the upper block here, this is what we call as the open loop system. Okay, but if you are on the we are talking about the control system. So when we talk about control system is that we are going to have the feedback to the input reference. So here is that normal output of the actuation. To read the output signal of the actuator in terms of displacement or in terms of temperature or rotary angle, so you need to have the sensor. So this is where we have the measurement system. So the sensor will be connected to the output of the actuator here. So this sensor will give you the reading in terms of displacement, temperature, and so on. So sensor example, you have a vision sensor, or you have a camera, you have the encoder, which is the linear encoder, or rotary encoder, and you have the force sensor. So all of these, remember, this one output will be this output, which is this to display whatever that we have from the sensor, to display it in a show in terms of a scale and so on. And from here is that you have the output in terms of analog, and this sensor will read the data in analog, and in order for you to actually feed it back to the input references, that you need to convert this from A to D. So this is where you have the A to D converter. So you have the signal conditioning again in this block measurement. So you have either you want to amplify the signal from the sensor, so you have the amplifier, you have the filter. If it's too noisy, the reading from the sensor, so you need to have add the filter, and you need to have also the A to D converter, or digital to digital converter. Okay, so based on here, if your output is not the same as the reference, so you are going to actually compare it with the input reference that you set at the beginning of the system. So reference here, example, if you want to control the motor in 90 degree, okay, and your output here it's 85 degree, okay, so 85 degree. So meaning that, what are the difference here? So the error is actually the reference minus the output. So you have 90 minus 85, so you have error is 5 degrees. So based on this, the control architecture will actually try to reduce the error, so that you have the output is equivalent to the input reference. Now we are going to look at the key elements of mechatronics. So as mentioned before, we have the 4 key elements, which is the control system, the mechanical system, the computer system, and the electrical system. So let's look at the first one, which is on the information system, and we can actually relate the information system with the control system. So an information system is the combination of signal processing, control system, and also numerical method. Means that we have all of this combination of mathematical in the information system. And for the mechatronic system, normally information system concerned with modeling and simulation, automatic control, and numerical method for optimization. So in control system, the first part that you are going to learn later on is on the modeling of a block diagram. So for example, you have a mechanical system, so you're going to model that mechanical system into a transfer function. So that is what we call as a modeling, to convert from the block diagram to a transfer function. And after that, using the transfer function, you're going to simulate the output, okay, using the transfer function that you use differentiate, using the transfer function that you derive. Second one is on the automatic control. So basically, in the modeling, you will have one transfer function here. So the transfer function will be the mathematical modeling, and you're going to do a simulation. So for example, you can run the simulation using MATLAB Simulink, and when you run the simulation, you can actually show the open loop characteristic of the system using the simulation. And next, when you want to control the system, is that you are going to make a feedback to the system, and by adding the error port. So you have the reference here, then you have the output. Okay, so here is the error. And that one is the numerical method for optimization. So later on, when you have this closed loop, you will have the controller inside here. So this controller need to be optimized. So this is where later in the control engineering subject, you're going to optimize the parameter for controller. So in the modeling is that the modeling is the process of representing the behavior of a real system, which is the physical system, by collection of mathematical equation and or logic. So modeling of a system, mechanical system or electrical system, you will learn later on. You will learn this in control system engineering, okay, in the first chapter. So you have a physical model here. So you're going to after you have modeled this, you can run the simulation in Simulink by giving an input to the system. Input here means that you give a voltage, and then you can look at what is the output. Output can be in terms of speed, temperature, displacement. And for the simulation is that the next process after you model the system. So simulation is the process of solving the model and is performed on a computer. So as mentioned, for engineering student, for mechatronics student, normally you are going to actually simulate it in Simulink MATLAB. And next we have the controller. So a control system is a group of components that maintain desired result by manipulating the value of another variable in the system. So control system, as mentioned, is comprised of three main components just now. So you have the measurement system, you have the actuation system, and you have the controller. Okay, so you have all these three. So based on this, you can actually control the system. When you have energy source here, means that you have a disturbance. So disturbance. So if you have a disturbance, can the system robust enough to be controlled? Under control system, we have two types of control system, which is the continuous control system, where the variable and parameter to be controlled are continuous. And second one is that we have the discrete control system, where the variable and parameter are indiscrete and mostly in binary. Okay, so imagine that we have a control system. For example, if you have a thermometer, what is the value? Is in continuous motion. Okay, means that it's in continuous. But in discrete means that its reading is either in this like being sampled here. So it's being sampled, right, in binary. So later, in next semester, you're going to take signal and system. So in signal system is that you're going to learn about the continuous time signal and discrete time signal. So you will understand more detail on this. So let's see an example of a continuous control signal. So continuous control signal is something example of a die bond process. Die bond process. So it is the third operation in the front of line process. So front of line FOL is actually assembly process flow at the back end. So BE is back end. BE is back end. Okay, I have shared in the ULearn the process. This is one of the process in semiconductor. So in semiconductor, we have the back end and we have the front end. Front end is more to how to produce the wafer, and for back end is for the assembly. So go through the appendix in the ULearn, and for each of the front end and back end, we have different processes. So this one is example of the front of line. So under back end, we have front of line and end of line. Okay, so front of line is this process. So we have first one is from the front of line, we have the wafer. So output here, output of the front of line is the wafer. Yeah? So in the back end process, we have front of line. So this process is front of line. Okay, so first one is that wafer back grind. So we are going to grind the wafer to make it thin, and then mount the wafer mounting process, mount the process onto the machine, which is and third process is wafer sawing, means that to cut the wafer into chips, small chips. And third one is that die attach, to attach the chip onto the base. And third one is that fifth one is that wire bonding. So wire bonding is actually similar to soldering, so it's going to solder the chip onto the point. And lastly is the die overcoat. Okay, so this sixth process is the front of line process. Okay, you can look in the video that I share is on the front of line and end of line processes in the semiconductor.